John Schneider is entering his third season as manager of the Toronto Blue Jays.
Man, time flies.
Take some time with us as we kick off morning number 2 at the winter meetings. Thanks for being here, man.
Thanks for having me, guys. Good to see you.
Your team has kind of confused us in that we thought going into the season they were going to be bangers, offense first, and you turned into kind of a pitching first team last year as opposed to what happened in your first season. What are we expecting moving forward, and where are you guys looking to add?
Yeah, hopefully a little bit of both. I think the pitching and defense was an area, we wanted to really shore up and did that. The offense took a little bit of a different turn, less home runs, things like that. So we're looking to add some power. Hopefully the pitching and defense can kind of continue to perform the way it did last year and kind of find that sweet spot.
You know what's interesting, John? It's like you're growing with your young players. You guys are on the same step, same learning curve. So what have you learned in the last couple seasons watching them perform and managing yourself?
Yeah, great question. It's been cool. It's been unique to kind of do that with a handful of those guys. I think what I've learned is that these guys are, A, really good, and B, they deserve to be treated as such. You know, it's such a different lifestyle in minor leagues to major leagues, and watching a few of these guys kind of turn into superstars. So I think giving them, exactly what they need, listening to their feedback, whatever that may be, whether it's something on the field or something in the clubhouse, and hopefully finding a happy medium.
None of us knew how the kind of ballpark alterations were going to affect you guys on the field. Looking back now, the fact that the offensive numbers weren't as robust as we thought, the pitching numbers were terrific. Did ballpark have to do with that, or was that strictly personnel?
Weird, we all thought it was going to be, a little bit more of a hitter-friendly ballpark than it was, and I think it was a little bit of both. I think guys, listening to the guys come into the dugout, they thought they got this pitch or that pitch, and it didn't go anywhere. And the ball played a little bit differently down the lines, too. So it was a little bit of both, I think. You don't want to blame it on the new ballpark renovations, but the ballpark itself looked fabulous, and guys really loved playing there. But probably a little bit of both, to where it was a weird fluke year for some guys and a little bit different, look of it.
Before we dive into the Ohtani stuff, I want to throw one other thing in there real quick. So Vlad Jr., up and down, but if like I was talking with a couple of guys already, we have the ballpark camera, so we get a chance to watch a lot of the batting practice anyway. Hit all the time extra. He did everything he could to try to figure out what was going on. What did you see in his inconsistency that maybe going into the winter he needs to work on to be consistent?
Yeah, I've talked to Vlad a few times just this offseason. He's down in Florida like myself, and I think it's just being consistent every at-bat, having a plan every single at-bat. He works so hard, times where people don't see in the cage, on the field. A lot of it comes down to pitch selection, and teams are starting to pitch him very specifically. And I think there were times that he wanted to do too much. I think when you look at how our lineup unfolded, there was a different guy behind him a lot in the lineup, and I think that probably affected him a little bit. But for Vladdy, man, it comes down to swinging at the right pitch and just understanding that if it's not him, hopefully the guy behind him can get it done.
Well, we act like he's a 10-year veteran, and wow, he's really not going to get where he's at. The narrative just drives me nuts. This guy's, 23, 24 years old?
24, yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you come off the year he had in 21, everyone says, okay, this is going to be the norm, and that was outrageous what he did. So it's to his credit, he handles everything so well. He acts like a 10-year veteran because he's been around the game his whole life, but you forget how young he really is.
Because I know that your specific game prep is very thorough, and I meant to ask every manager we've had on this question. First year of the balanced schedule last year. You're not living almost exclusively within your division in the AL East. So there's some teams that you're game planning against that you might not be as familiar with head-to-head personnel-wise. Was that a challenge, and how did that affect your prep when you're out of the division, you're playing somebody in the NL West that you haven't seen in 3 years?
Yeah, it was fun. I think that our process stayed the same, obviously, and teams you're not familiar with, you have to dive a little bit deeper into what they're trying to do, what each player may do, playing the Diamondbacks and the way they run the bases with those guys, and trying to solve them. It was a cool thing, I think, for us to kind of see unfold. And then you get back to your division, the Bostons, New York's, Tampa's, and you kind of feel really good about your prep. But the process stayed the same, and we have a great group in place that does a lot of really good work for us. And a coaching staff that wants to kind of dive into it just as much.
So when you get a chance to sit back, what you have now, and you go back over the season, and it's really only 3 or 4 wins here or there that change the whole direction of your season, so to speak. What little things stand out that you say, if we did this better, we would have won X more games?
Yeah, I mean, I always I point the finger at myself first and foremost. What could I have done better? And I've done a lot of, reflecting as to, could you make a decision here or there? You look at that first. You look at the way we prepared as a staff. You look at that second. And then I think when you look at the actual season, if it's, another couple hits with runners in scoring position, especially early in the year, if it's not running into outs on the bases and kind of just taking care of those. And, those little things that we talked about in spring training, and I think really nailed a lot of them. I think the bases is something that stood out to where we can get better. But, yeah, I think a couple hits, I mean, our pitching was there, our defense was there, and it just didn't really quite click.
Yeah. I know this is more of a Mark and Ross thing, but Ohtani, right? We got all these reports that the Blue Jays snuck him into Dunedin and they had some clandestine, Danish and coffee meeting with him. As the manager of the team, you're not in charge of this, and it's kind of an unfair question. I'm going to hit you with it anyway.
Great, thanks.
So you have to hear some of this stuff, and then I would imagine it's tempting to dream a little bit about writing that name on your scorecard. Do you allow yourself to dream about that, or are you going to wait until everything is said and done and you know he's coming or not?
I mean, I think there's so many good free agents out there. He's obviously a really good one, and, you just really trust that Mark and Ross are going to do whatever they can to help the team get better. I think any manager that's here in this building would say they would love to write his name in the lineup. That's that's an obvious one, but there's a lot of guys that we're looking at to try to make us better, and we feel really good about the guys that are there now that are returning. So it'll be a little bit different look, I think, and whoever that is, we're looking forward to it.
Facing Ohtani, you got a chance to play against him. How did you game plan? What does he do that just kind of awes you? We all have our own thoughts. I'm curious yours.
For one, he's so big. He's a big dude and runs like not a big dude. You tried to stay a lot of soft stuff down and away. You tried to stay up in the zone with the fastball. I know he clipped Gauzy the first pitch there in Toronto, and a few guys let me know about pitching to him. But
split on split crime.
Yeah, exactly.
That was.
Exactly. So, I think you got to be careful. You got to see who's around him in the order, and at times make other people beat you, because he can do some things that not many people can do.
We'll be watching, and we'll be watching what your club does. Always really fun to watch this time of year. John, we appreciate the visit, man. Good luck.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate you having me.
Happy holidays.
Very good job dodging that. It was awesome.
Had to ask.